Welcome, my name is Anthony Patch, and we are going to cover 4, perhaps 5 news items today. Take us about 15 minutes, thereabouts, and I appreciate you tuning in for a few moments. First one is a story that you probably have heard already this week, was first released in August, and that is Elon Musk and his Neuralink. And again, I'm just giving you the headlines for you to go ahead and search these out for yourself and take a look at the articles. If you'd like to hear my commentary on these topics, please join us on Patreon, Anthony Patch on Patreon. So Elon Musk and Neuralink, something that patrons and myself have covered extensively and also in the pages of my monthly magazine, Entangled Magazine. We have published several breakdowns on the nuts and bolts of technology of the Neuralink. It's entitled here on Ars Technica, both an evolution and a plan for radical change. Again, dated August of this year. So Elon is presenting a technology that robotically inserts very fine tubes into the human brain to act as sending and receiving antenna associated with groups of neurons at any one time, not into a neuron itself, but alongside neurons. And this is the machine-human interface, the brain-computer interface, BCI as it's known. Okay, so I won't go into that too much because most of you have probably heard of that already. The second one I'd like to highlight is from Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg, and his wife, who happens to be a pediatrician, and they have created a organization known as Chan Zuckerberg Biohub. His wife's last name is Chan, and this is the map of every cell in the human body. That's their goal. Now, you may recall that there was about 5 years ago, the mapping of the human genome that was accomplished. And underway now for the last 2.5 years has been the mapping of the human brain. And it is Zuckerberg and his wife who are, through their organization, Chan Zuckerberg Biohub, funded by the sale of 29 million shares in Facebook around February of this year. They are seeking to map every cell in the human body. You'll see a common thread moving through these headlines this evening. Next, I'd like to go to something that many people, especially Christians, would refer to as the mark of the beast. And again, this is something that has been going on for over a year now in Sweden and in Europe in general. But the headline here is the star of the 39th GITEX. It's GITEX, GITEX Technology Week in Dubai, is a human implantable NFC microchip that is capturing the attention of United Arab Emirates. The demonstration of the implantable microchip NFC card was shown at the GITEX Technology Week 2019, which ended on 10 October. Several ministries, including the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Finance, showed interest in the technology and are in talks with the Swedish firm. The rice grain-sized biocompatible NFC implant can be inserted just under the skin between the index finger and thumb. The chip can be injected under the skin like a vaccine shot, explained Johan Osterlund, the founder and CEO of Biohacks. That's BIOHAX, Biohacks International. Okay, so what they are essentially spreading is the device that they intend to use to link up humans to the hive mind. And again, we've covered this in great detail in both my magazine and in Patreon broadcasts over the last couple of years. Now, here's a news story, and this really caught my attention today because it really coalesces a lot of the technologies that we cover. And that is from news.com.au, story that broke today. Terminally ill scientist with motor neuron disease transforms into the world's first cyborg by replacing body parts with machinery. A world-renowned roboticist dying from motor neuron disease is transforming himself into a robot to extend his life. Now, he has ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease, which is a neurodegenerative disorder that essentially renders yourself unable to breathe, unable to speak, unable to move. And he is currently wheelchair bound, but he intends to replace the muscular functions of his body, such as breathing, respiratory drive, and his ability to move his limbs, which are affected by ALS, and also the ability for the digestive system, the muscles of the digestive system, to digest food and excrete waste products. All of these will be replaced by robotic systems, if you will, by machinery. So it's not that he's swapping out his organs. He's simply taking the muscular system that is being rendered non-functional and allowing machinery technology to take over. But he'll still be rendered, essentially wheelchair bound. In Europe and in Australia, they call it MND for the ALS disorder. But what he is doing is, most recently now, he is connecting himself up to a ventilator through a tracheotomy, which is inserting just below the vocal cords a breathing tube for a ventilator, so he will no longer be able to speak. His name is Dr. Scott Morgan of Torquay, England. He said, "When I say cyborg, I don't just mean any old cyborg, you understand, but by far the most advanced cybernetic organism ever created in 13.8 billion years. He says, I'm scheduled to become the world's very first full cyborg. So again, this is Dr. Scott Morgan. It's hyphenated, Dr. Scott Morgan. And he's already created an avatar of himself so that this avatar will take over for him, as well as, of course, speaking for him, because with the ventilator, he'll no longer be able to speak. So, very first human cyborg, apparently, according to this article. Again, you can find this at news.com.au. Now, let's go to the last article here, and this is another whistleblower. This is from Breitbart, and this came out a few days ago, but it's a whistleblower that's unrelated to Donald Trump. Whistleblower Google partners with China on AI Manhattan Project. And you may recall that the Manhattan Project label stems from the development of the first atomic bomb here in the United States. Former Google senior software developer and whistleblower Zach Voorhees appeared on SiriusXM's Breitbart News Tonight with host Rebecca Mansour on Friday to discuss Google's relationship with Communist China and the company's artificial intelligence project, DeepMind, which has been called the, quote, AI Manhattan Project. Now, we highlighted some of the revelations early on that came out by way of Zach Voorhees, and he was on Project Veritas at that time. And now he's coming out with a little bit more information, and that's regarding China. Now, as background, the research that I've been providing to my patrons regarding AI and Google and China also includes D-Wave, quantum computing systems. And it's a little known, but the patrons know this because I announced this over 2 years ago, and we've repeated it, that China took delivery of a $10 million quantum computer from D-Wave Systems of Canada. And that is being used specifically for the development of artificial general intelligence, the leading edge, the most advanced form of artificial intelligence through quantum computing. So About 2 weeks ago, I announced that Google had claimed quantum supremacy over classical transistor-based quantum computers. And again, we've published in the October issue of Entangled Magazine pretty much all of the necessary nuts and bolts hardware background and mathematics to define and describe and show you the implications for using the word supremacy. And it is a word you're going to see a lot more in the media, both scientific and mainstream, and even in the alternative media, the word supremacy regarding quantum computers and as applied to artificial intelligence. So the overall message for these news items tonight is the human cyborg, that the push is to take all scientific disciplines and merge them together with the focal point of defeating death. It's well beyond this, sort of Ray Kurzweil, Johnny Depp, if you will, scenario of uploading your consciousness into a computer. What they're focused on is creating synthetic life forms, including Sanctuary.ai that I've mentioned to you in the last news brief. The goal is to create cyborgs. The goal is to replace the human race, but this will not be for the average person. This is going to be for those elite few who will have access to these technologies. It begs the question, with over 7 billion people on the planet, why do we need synthetic life forms? Why do we need cyborgs? Certainly in the case of ALS and other debilitating diseases and deformities, it's nice to have an alternative. But what quality of life? That's the bigger question. What quality of life would an individual experience as a cyborg in a body that is either enhanced and augmented, as I was just sharing with you, or an actual fully synthetic body, a biologically synthetic body that you would transfer your consciousness to if that was possible? What would be your quality of life? Well, from a Christian perspective, that along with the mark of the beast that I just mentioned, the taking of the chip, the taking of the mark, the quality of life is severely substandard, to say the least. Okay, so I just wanted to give you those brief highlights. The goal is that you'll take those topics and research it on your own. If you'd like to listen to my commentary on these, join us on Patreon. And I'm encouraging my patrons to also support Caravan to Midnight by becoming a member of Caravan to Midnight with John B. Wells. And John B. and I have been in close communications over the last week or so, working out the logistics of these news briefs. He likes to call me his science officer now, and that's fine with me. But that's essentially what we'll do for the near future, just these little news briefs. Maybe it'll expand to longer segments. We'll see what happens. But the point is we have similar interests, John and myself. He covering a lot of the politics, myself covering the science. But the two need to be merged together because they're directly influential upon one another. And the caravanners and the patrons in the Patreon group that we have here, we are of similar viewpoints. And I think it's important that we bring the two audiences, the two groups together, so that we're able to sort of cross-pollinate, if you will, our information, the information that John is presenting, the information that I'm presenting, so that you have a broader picture of what's going on with the world and you're better informed, and certainly to reduce any of the fear due to a lack of knowledge, reduce that fear factor, if you will. So thank you for the opportunity to address you, and we will do so once again. This being Wednesday, I'll be broadcasting again on Thursday. A little delay in the scheduling when it comes out through Caravan to Midnight, but essentially germane to these news broadcasts are the live streams that you can find in the archives through my Patreon site at Anthony Patch. Also, anthonypatch.com. Links to everything, including Entangled Magazine. Thank you, and good evening.